All right, Slider Nation, welcome into a abbreviated cast this week. Everybody else bailed on us. What is
Well,
it? Brandon's in Iowa doing MCA things,
corn things.
corn things. Yeah, something about cousins too. Uh,
Hey, each their own, brother.
yeah. Thomas had a tough day at work, so he decided he couldn't handle it. John was out. I don't know why John couldn't make it, and Neilden is somewhere. I forget where.
Well, the last picture I saw of him, he was in a pool. So,
Anyway, he's traveling with his family, so it's me and Phil, and we're gonna do what we do. We're the honorary old guys of this group, so we're gonna talk about old guy things.
legends
Um,
in our own mind.
yes. Um, for those that don't know, Phil and I met on the racetrack more or less. When I started racing dwarf cars, he was already established in the dwarf car world, and he stuffed it in a turn three on a practice when a shock broke, and was about to load it up and go home. And Phil and James said, "No, no, no, you're not going anywhere. You got spares. Let's get this thing fixed," and fixed it
Yep.
up, and was in for the.
In for the night. And then wasn't it later on in that race that you come out of a turn and were sideways and I was coming straight at you or something like that? Was that race?
That was. I don't think that was that race, but there was a. It was probably a couple weeks later when Kevin Bates flipped right in front of us
Yeah. Yep.
in the old '81 car, and I jumped on the brakes, and
Oh, yeah.
I had three wheel brakes on that car at that time, so it turned me dead sideways. I was facing the infield, looking right at the number 7 on the door of your car, going, "Oh, hey, there's Phil."
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah,
We didn't hit, though.
no, we didn't.
No, no, no. Good thing
Yeah,
I had four brakes on my car.
yeah. For those that don't for those that don't know, I turn off the right front brake on cars so it'll help me set in the corner.
And for those that don't know, later on in life, we took the left front or the right front brake off my car, which makes it fun when you get on the binders real hard.
So the hot topic of the week appears to be, according to looking at various clips and videos we've seen, appears I don't really call it a dirty slider, but it's definitely dirty racing. Is retaliation? People using their cars as weapons.
Yeah, I don't. There's a couple things out there, and I know we're a dirt track, but I think a couple of videos we have are asphalt, but stuff that happens, just kind of in the line of what we're going to talk about tonight, right, Razz?
Yeah, the one that we're looking at is the first one is dirt late model.
Dirt late model, nice.
It's at Port Royal Speedway in Pennsylvania,
Oh yeah,
and it's a shame we
we
don't
could
have
talk about this one for a minute.
it's a shame we don't have Ryan Spencer on here because I think he was probably there photographing.
Oh yeah, probably.
Let me try the old screen share feature here and see what we can do.
And again, folks, we are not professionals and we clearly have no clue what we're doing. And that's okay. All three of you that are watching right now can see. If we can't laugh at ourselves, who can we laugh at? Hey, there we go. Oh yeah, this one. I got some stuff about this one.
So I don't know the players involved here, but let's run this through and see what we think. I'd say he's upset.
I would think so. I mean, I probably have a pretty strong opinion about
Yeah,
that.
87's like, oh, I don't need to be anywhere near here.
And yeah. So when we get done with this, that official's a pretty big boy. Just kind of yanked him out of there, didn't he?
Seemed like I'm gonna run that through one more time.
One more time.
It seemed like he had a
So
little
right
feeling.
here, yeah, there's some feels going on right there.
Yeah, drove it into the carburetor.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, let me
And
sell.
then drove over his left front there. And the guy in the 117, he's like, I'm out. I'm gone. And I think he's got a pretty stiff opinion about what happened there. What do you
Oh,
think?
that guy's got a gun. Let me walk
Oh, the
right over.
cop. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
cop there. Yeah. All right. So let's put that to bed.
So that's there's no room for that.
No.
That's not racing. That's if you were in any other sport where you were having a temper tantrum like that, they would throw you out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, tiddlywinks. You know,
I mean,
you'd be shown the door.
yeah, you'd be shown the door. You'd serious fine. You very well could get barred for life. I mean, uh, and 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 on that one there, I know that when you were my crew chief and we were working together, if somebody did something like that, whether I was right, wrong, or indifferent, if somebody drove up over our hood like that, I imagine the crews would probably be having a conversation in the pits too, led by you.
Well, I had one rule, and I told you this. Every driver I ever work with, I tell them the same thing. You do what you got to do on the track. When you come back here in the pits, they will not get anywhere near you.
Yep.
I guarantee you that. And I would always, if something happened, I'd tell you, hey, go up in the trailer. And then if someone came over and wanted to have a conversation about it, I'd just tell them to get the hell out of our pit.
Yep.
It just there was never any reason to fight. I don't think. Um, See, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2". I'm 250 now, and I've always kind of been around that size. If I get in a fight with someone, someone's going to get hurt, and I'm not saying it won't be me, but that's the thing with a fist fight is usually both sides get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's just no point in having one. And I just don't think there's any place in racing to retaliate like that with on the track, and we see it all the time. It happens every week somewhere.
Well, there's a lot of things that can go wrong right there. I mean, let's see. So he drove. You know, we don't know what happened to create the ill feelings. Okay. Clearly, that's two drivers that had a significant difference of opinion. But there's a lot that could go wrong right there. I mean, those are late models, running methanol or race gas. I don't know which. But he drives up on there. He knocks that carburetor off. Now, I mean, you could start a fire, and now
I
you've
mean,
got
let's say he goes that far and knocks the carburetor off the motor and spills hot fuel or spills fuel on a hot engine. Now you have a fire,
yeah, and
and
then
you are one car is parked on top of the other, and in that particular situation, you would not impede the driver from getting out. But there could be a situation where the car is stuck in such a way where the driver can't get out, and you just set his car on fire.
yeah,
So I mean, it could have fatal implications. Just I I don't get it. When I was younger, I used to get it, would get that angry. But
yeah.
the thing is you're racing. Something happened. Whatever happened, it did. Whatever did happen shouldn't rise to the level where you do that kind of crap.
Well, I mean, let's and now, and I totally agree with now. Let's go to the track. Where was that again? That was where
Port Royal.
Port Royal. So promoter, I don't know what happened there, but as the promoter, track owner, race director, whatever you want to call him, uh, right there, you're done. The guy that turned around, hit the parked car, drove up on the parked car, you load your stuff up and don't ever come back.
Now I agree with that, but the thing is tracks don't. Um, the classic example is it's asphalt racing with Bowman Gray.
Yeah.
They have crap like that every race week, and those stands are packed. I mean,
Yeah.
they're pulling in 10, 15,000 people a night, which is huge for a small track.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so from a promoter's point of view, they don't hate that stuff. They might say they do, but the reality is they love that kind of drama. Crowd goes wild, and that clip that we just shown, it's probably been shown 100 times around Port Royal Speedway, if not more than that, and it's it does promote the racing. Do I agree that it's good promotion? No, it's not, but you're not going to stop it. And I think for that reason, promoters have a conflict of interest in bringing that stuff to a stop. They, people love the drama. That is prime drama.
Well, let's go with this route. You got kids in the stands. Kids in the stands see that. If there's no corrective action for poor behavior on that, what are we teaching? What are we as adults teaching kids? It's okay to use a 3,000 pound race car as a weapon.
I don't get it. Um, I'll tell another dinosaur story. This seems to be a theme with me every week. Uh, when I, when I was racing at Santa Maria Speedway, it was the final race of the season, and it was late models, and I wasn't racing in the class. I was helping a friend out who was racing that class, and it come down to Phil Barrows and Ray Marquin for the championship, and it was close. Like it was gonna be settled that night between the two of them, and uh, Marquin and Barrows got together in the heat race, um, and you could point the blame either way, but they got together, and Marquin's car got junked, just tore the whole front end off the thing, and so Ray Marquin went up in the stands. Well, you know what's in the stands? Beer.
Beer,
And
lots of it.
what was up in the stands for Ray American was beer and brothers.
That's a hell of a combination when they're upset.
So Phil Barrows wins the championship, and um, I'm there helping my buddy David Schuyler, and we look down there where this races are over. This people are coming out of the stands, and um, we look down to Phil Barrows pit, and there is a tussle going on. And Dave Schuyler's son, Dave Jr., we call him Bones, comes flying out of the pile like launched out of a cannon. So Dave goes running down there. All he knows is his kid just got tossed, and so here I go. I'm going down there too. And we get down there. Phil is on the ground, having a seizure, blood coming out of him. Like
Hmm.
what the hell? Um. So that obviously at that point that people see that, and the tussle broke down, and I'm just looking at the people have the American brothers on the ground, like, and next thing you know, the police are there and they're cuffing them up. So I didn't actually see this happen, but the story was is that they went down to Phil Barrows, and the two brothers came up behind him, grabbed his arms, and pinned his arms behind his back, and Ray American proceeded to start beating on that man, like he cheated him out of a championship with Phil's hands held behind his back. Put him in the hospital. He had to leave on the plus bus, as Andy Stepp says.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Phil a couple of days later. His face was swollen. It looked like Quasimodo. His eye
Jeez.
was swollen shut. His jaw was swollen out to here. I'm like, Jesus. So they banned the Marquin brothers for life from Santa Maria Speedway. Done. You're out of here. You're never coming back.
And they deserved it.
I don't know if they actually got criminal charges. I don't remember how it went down. I seem to remember the criminal charges did not stick. That goes. It's like yeah,
Yeah.
everybody decided to fight at once. But that wasn't a fight. That was an ambush.
No, that was an old school ass whooping. That unfair ass whooping.
So years later, go back up to Santa Maria Speedway after I'd moved to San Diego to start helping out as an MCA official and everything. And I get up there, and Ray Marquin's racing. I'm like, what the hell? He was banned for life. Am I missing something here? Did he come back and reincarnated, and now he's allowed back at the track? And I'm having this conversation with the promoter, and he's like, oh well, no, I don't know.
No, he was banned for life.
How do you let somebody like that come back and race? And I never got a good answer, but I really think it was
Dollars.
people just don't care.
Yeah.
So you literally assault someone, could have killed him.
Yeah.
When you're on the ground having a full-on seizure because someone beat you that bad, you've got medical training.
Yeah,
That's a whisker away from dead.
yeah. Your brain's getting beat down. I don't know, man. It's just kind of it's unfortunately, and seems as though in racing that the okay, so my dad used to race. My dad raced late models in upstate New York. He raced at Weed Sports Speedway, and my dad, he had his rivalries. One of the rivalries he had was with a guy named Red Weegan, and uh, you know, he told me one day we were at the track, and my dad saw Red Weegan sitting down in the stands, and my dad was like, "We got to move," and I said, "Why?" And he says, "I hate that," and I'm like, but Dad, and he's like, "Nope, we got to move," and we moved down further in the stands to get away. But at least my dad, had the wherewithal to move away from. But it's like, why? Why do we promote this poor behavior, and where has society gone now where actions like that, it's the coolest thing since sliced bread? It's not cool. You're doing thousands of dollars worth of damage. You're potentially injuring a competitor. I don't know. I just that part of the spectacle. I mean, you told me a story about, I think it was at Santa Maria, where the promoter said, if you fight in the pits, it's $100 fine, and I'm going to kick you out for, suspend you for so long. But if you fight on the front straight, I'm going to pay you $100. Was it you that told me that?
It was Chris Kearns. He had that policy.
Yeah. And again, that's promoting poor behavior.
He
And like
was
you
he
said, it
was
brings the fans in.
he was serious about
Yeah.
it. Chili Bowl kind of has that rule. If you're going to fight, fight on the track. They say it's because if it goes back into the pits and crew members and everything start getting involved, they can't control it. That's their reasoning. Let the drivers handle it, and if they're going to handle it, pull up, uh, turn forward or the front stretch, get out, deal with it. Which just happens to be right in front of the biggest group of fans. Um,
Yeah.
so are they being hypocritical? I don't really know. Like I said, they have a stated reason for it, and they're right. If I've seen a couple fights in the pits and it gets hand real quick. There are way too many people in that part of the building. I watched a guy get his arm broke because he got into a fight, and he went down and his arm tangled up in the Nerf bar in the car and twisted just right and snapped his arm.
Well, I'm going to say this. I mean, you've seen this when there's been an issue in the pits. Um, you've seen me have a discussion with another driver. There are varying levels of intensity of discussion. Uh, but if it's just two drivers having a discussion with each other, the chances of a punch being thrown or a physical confrontation while it's there are probably lower. But when you get other people involved, and I'm going to go this route: crew guys, family, and spouses. Crew guys get involved and everybody starts bapping. Family gets involved, or I hate to say it, the spouses, the driver's wives get involved, and the two wives start going at you, and then one driver says something, "Shut your bitch up," or something like that. Then now it's escalated to a different situation. And Raz, I've seen you have conversations with other drivers where you two, you don't like each other. I've seen it where you've had a conversation with a driver you don't like each other. Something happened on the racetrack. You two step off away from everybody. You have a conversation. It might get heated. It might get a little loud, but at no point did I ever think that there was going to be a punch thrown. You've seen me have conversations with drivers that's escalated, and but at no point, well, for the most part, at no point there was never going to be a punch thrown. But you start getting these external um, factors in there, and the next thing you know, somebody throws a punch, and then it's mob mentality.
When I first started dating Bobby, we went to a track, and um, we're in the pits, and she hadn't had much experience in the pits, and these two drivers had an incident, and they were in the pits, and it's a typical thing. They're yelling back and forth. And about 30 seconds into it, one of the wives or girlfriends yelled, "You asshole!"
And it
Turned around.
was on.
I said, "It's on."
Yep.
And sure enough, within a few seconds, it was on. There was a fight.
Yep. Yep.
And afterwards, she asked me, she goes, "How'd you know?" I said, "Look," I said, "two things happened. She piped up, and now whoever she belongs to or belongs with heard her and knows that she is watching. The other thing that's going to happen is the guy she was talking to is either going to tell her to shut the fuck up or tell him, shut your fucking woman up."
Yep.
And that will be the fight right there.
Yep.
And
That will be the spark that sets off the cat. That's it.
always happens. And it's just one of those things. And I'm not saying women don't belong in pits. They do, absolutely. I'm all for women in the pits. I'm all for women drivers, crew,
Yes.
whatever. It's just one of those things that it's that testosterone thing when
Yep.
my girlfriend is watching and I know she's watching, or my wife
And I've got to be a man.
And that's
Well,
how it goes.
What
And
I'm going to say right now,
testosterone based sport for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, what I'm going to say right now is very controversial, and I want everybody to understand that this is not my personal opinion. This is a comment that was made by drivers who raced back in the 60s and 70s. Specifically where my dad raced was Weedsport Speedway in upstate New York. I was fortunate enough to sit in on a conversation with a bunch of the old late model drivers. My dad was there. I was listening to them talk. I was a kid, listening to talk. And when I say a kid, this is back in the, mid 80s. I'm sitting down listening to this conversation, and they were talking about the good old days of racing. And one of the drivers piped up and they were talking about fights in the pits or potentials for fights in pits. And one of the drivers piped up and said, back in the 60s, we didn't have a lot of driver fights. We had a lot of driver arguments. We had a lot of drivers voicing their opinion and about what happened on the racetrack. But there weren't fights thrown. He goes, fights really escalated and took off at Weedsport. I'm speaking about Weedsport, was when women were allowed in the pits. Because now, and I'm going back to the 60s when it was a different era, and you and I are old school. We believe in protecting our spouses, our loved ones, our ladies. We protect our ladies. And he said back then, if somebody popped off to your girlfriend or your kid or your wife, talking was done. It's now we're throwing hands, and we're throwing hands until somebody's on the ground. It wasn't, and one of the drivers said that. And again, I know this is a controversial, and I'm not saying this is I believe anybody should be allowed in the pits, especially with women drivers now. Yeah, I say that, but that was a comment that was made, and I got to sit back and look at it, and I wonder if there's any validity to that.
Well, I'm not anti-fighting. I think if you could somehow wave a magic wand where it was just the two drivers involved, and they argue until they either work it out or decide they're going to fight.
Yes.
Then go ahead and fight. I think it's stupid to fight.
Yeah.
It's I don't street fight anymore because people die.
Yeah.
It's not like when you're a kid and you're just fighting for fun. Stuff happens, but it's never just the two drivers.
No, oh no, not anymore.
It's always the crew guy jumps in, or the spouse jumps in, or the son, or whoever, and it just becomes this melee. And I there's no place for that. And so for that reason, I guess you got to have to be anti-fighting, because the two drivers thing will never happen. It's going to be just crowd. It's going to be a riot.
Right.
But I don't think you're going to eliminate it, because even at the top levels, when NASCAR says, "Oh, we have zero tolerance for fighting," and then they'll use the fight in the promo for the next race.
Yeah,
it's in the video. Like, there should be a rule if they use the video of whatever happened as a promotion for the next fight, there should be no fines, no penalties, because clearly they want it. They're promoting it.
Absolutely. I mean, do you remember the clip with Danica Patrick and Denny Hamlin when Denny come over and was talking with Danica, and she was sitting there, and she was, I can't remember if she was using the back of her hand or front, but she was bap, bap, bap on his chest. And I watched that. I remember seeing that live. And I said, if that had been Denny Hamlin walking up to Kevin Harvick, any other driver, Ryan Newman would have took his head off. But, you know, and I hate to say this, but that's the other thing is, in racing, there's things that people get away with just because of their, God, this is controversial, guys, and I know we're going to get slammed on this. Women get away with a lot more and in the pits as women drivers, because there's no way I'm going to, I mean, how many times did a woman driver have something real shitty to say to us, and something that I would have turned around and just laid off on a guy, but because it was a woman driver, I just said, yeah, that's your opinion, and walk away.
Yeah. I remember the incident. She was basically, on his chest, to make her point. And yeah, you're right. Kevin Harvick couldn't have done that.
No,
Ryan,
hell no.
Ryan Newman couldn't have done that. Nobody. Tony Stewart couldn't have done that. There would have
Didn't
been a
Kevin
fight.
Harvick push Joey Logano into
Who was that? It was Joey
who was it?
Logano.
Uh,
I forget.
was it Joey Logano and Stewart? Was it those two having a beef?
Oh, it was Joey
And
Logano and Ryan Newman, and Harvick shoved Logano like, "Get on in there."
I remember that.
Yeah.
To talk about being an incident. Well, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. This is Phil's opinion. Promoters, if you're listening to this, you got to put a stop to it, or else you're gonna get somehow you got to put a stop to it, and you gotta instead of looking at your bottom line and your checkbook and your bank account, you're gonna get drivers hurt. You're gonna get drivers hurt. You're gonna get cars tore up, and if you allow this to continue to go on, that's my take on it.
Well, and I think what happens there is the ultimate end result is you're going to drive car count down. Um,
Yeah.
if we there's a track in California that we used to race dwarf cars at, and we knew when we went up there that we were going to get our stuff junked, because that's how
Yep.
those local drivers race. They
Yep.
were like, "You're not from here, so we're going to teach you a lesson."
Yep.
I'm not going to name the track because I like a bunch of guys who race there, but um, we knew that's how it was going to be, and we would make decisions on whether or not we were going to run that event based on that.
How many times did you do that with me? Say, hey, we're gonna go run this race. I'm like, dude, I can't afford it. I can't afford to, straighten an axle again. I can't afford the tires, wheels, Nerf bars, and bumpers we're gonna go through just because we're showing up.
And, to sound like an old boomer, is it because today's drivers don't work on their stuff? They just show up and drive. They'll use their car as a weapon, like we saw in the late model video we showed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Because the days of where a guy, builds his own car, builds his own motor, loads it on the trailer himself, tows it to the track himself, those are gone.
Yeah.
People, like in late model ranks, people don't build cars; they buy chassis and they buy parts and they bolt them together and they go race. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's the old fart in me wishes that people were still showing up with their own home built race cars, but understand.
Yeah.
So I really think there's a lot of drivers who don't know anything about working on their cars. Kyle Larson's a great example. Kyle Larson's an amazing driver. You won't see him working on his stuff, whether it's a NASCAR or whether it's the sprint car stuff. He might be helping out, but he's not up there making decisions and making setup changes and things like that, because he drives. That's what he does.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knows stuff, and I'm sure he has a conversation with Paul Silva and others, about how to set up the car. But I'm sure he would always defer to his crew chief, because he doesn't work on the car.
Right.
And
Right.
I think a lot of the new sensation right now is Keelan Harvick, driving the pro late models. Have Keelan Harvick set timing on that motor. I bet you he could.
Yeah. I would hope that you're wrong. I would hope that he would know how to do it. But I mean, it's the thing is before I got the that real bad concussion. Um, Neilden and you guys kind of chuckled when I'd sit there and I knew every nut and bolt on our race car. I knew it. I knew every nut and bolt. I knew what size everything was. I knew what lengths of everything were. I knew all the trailing arms. I knew every single thing about that car except the motor because we didn't go into the motors. Basically, I had a motor guy. I gave the guy the motor. He gave me back the motor. I didn't do the motorcycle motors, but everything else, I knew that car inside out, up and down. And how many times we come in and I'd say to you, say, something don't feel right here. Check this, this, and this because something's not right back there. Because you guys, when I had my fire suit on, you guys never let me work on the car where I could get grease, gas, or any type of flammable fluids because then my fire suit became an on fire suit.
Well, even dirt. Dirt decreases the
Yep.
efficacy of a fire suit. So I was a Nazi about that stuff with you and pretty much anybody else I could talk to. Don't work on the race car in your fire suit. Period.
Yep. Yep.
You had me and Neilden to work on your car. You didn't need to actually touch the wrenches. You could tell us what to do. We did a lot, but we did it.
That's fact. That's fact. That is fact. But yeah, so well, we missed the guys tonight.
Yeah, I think we're gonna pretty much call it here. We had another
Yeah.
video to show, but it's asphalt. So yeah,
Yeah, it's
uh,
asphalt Bowman Gray, and Bowman Gray promotes racing or promotes fighting where races break out.
like I said, two old guys. We need to do something. And the reality is we can bitch about it till the cows come home. I don't think it's gonna change. I
It's
think
not.
it's gonna stay on the same track just because that's how it's done now.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I'd say social media and all that stuff has done something with that. Is where it's the shock factor. We must have all that.
I'm guilty. The
Yeah.
the video pops
Oh.
up. I'm gonna watch it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where all of us it sensationalizes it a little bit. Uh, but when it's your checkbook and your blood, sweat, and tears on that race car, it changes the equation a little bit.
Oh yeah. You know about that. How many times did we not talk about it on Saturday, but come Monday morning when we had our debrief, you're like, shit, which credit card am I putting this on to fix all the shit that we just broke?
But
I don't
the
go ahead.
motor thing that we didn't touch on
Yeah.
our car, that's what's killing dwarf car racing. More
Well, we
on
could
that.
get into that next week.
More on that next week.
More on that next week.
Yeah, that's a whole episode of
Yeah.
itself, and we'll get the rest of the guys here to talk about that.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, I don't know all the socials, but Dirty Sliders on Facebook, Patreon, search for Dirty Sliders. We're going to start posting content that's behind the scenes on Patreon. So if you want to get a look at that, then join up. You can join up for as little as $1.
Well, for $1, Razz will get naked. For $5, he'll keep his clothes on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, man. Hey, it was a good conversation with you tonight.
Yep.
It was pretty interesting the way this one worked out.
Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Comment. If you have a topic you want to hear about, comment on this video, and then go over to our Patreon page and buy some shirts, buy some stickers, help us out. Good night.
Good night, y'all.